Hi, my name is Suzanne Brockmann, and I write the Night Sky series. And the first book is the first book is called Night Sky, and it's a YA paranormal series. And I write it with my daughter Melanie Brockmann, who is the most excellent writing partner. I've written quite a few romantic suspenses and romantic comedies as well. And I wanted to tell this particular story and set it in a paranormal world. And I really felt like the best kind of delivery vehicle for this particular storyline would be a YA series. And I'd been kind of eyeing Melanie for a number of years. She's a really good writer, and she has this really fabulous YA voice, really fresh, really lively, really relatable. And so we just kind of talked about it and decided that we'd give it a try to write this book, and we liked the way it came out. And this is my daughter, Melanie Brockmann.
Yeah, hi, I'm Melanie Brockmann, and we wrote the Night Sky series together. My mom and I did. I think my mom published her first book when I was in 4th grade, and I remember seeing that happen and thinking to myself, gosh, I want to do that someday. And I was an English major in college, and I always would write chapter 1 of, a million books, and then they would never go anywhere. And the reason why they never went anywhere was because I had all of these ideas, but I didn't know how to organize them. And so my mom approached me when I was, a couple years ago, and she said, Melanie, how would you like to write a book with me? And I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. Because I know how to do chapter 1, but chapter 5, I'm not quite there yet. And I have the best coach now. She's my mom, but she's a New York Times bestselling author. And so it was just an amazing opportunity. And of course, when she, asked me to, come on board for the project, I said, well, yeah, okay. Let me check my schedule book. So it was just an amazing opportunity. And I knew that she was going to be able to, show me how she outlined and organized and created these 3-dimensional characters that would really carry through, past chapter 1 and into chapter 5 and on to the end. And sure enough, we put our heads together and we came up with these characters and this idea that has just, I think it's a great book, and we're writing the sequel right now. It's really, really exciting.
So Night Sky came about when I actually had the idea originally when I was writing an adult romance called Born to Darkness, and it's a paranormal world set in the future where certain girls and certain people, it's not only girls, but mostly girls, have these kind of superpowers. And I wrote Born to Darkness, and it was well received. But I just kept thinking that the perfect delivery vehicle for this story it just felt more suited to a YA, and where there would be a young girl who is one of these girls with powers, and how she comes to discover this, and what she does, and then it puts her into danger and a great deal of threat because she's got these powers, and she has to learn how to harness them. And so when I approached Melanie with the idea, and I said, okay, now she's got to have sidekicks, she's got to have friends, she's got to be in a world that's believable. It's set in the future. We have to, world build a little bit, and we had to use the rules that I'd already created in Born to Darkness. So I think that was helpful and limiting at the same time. As we were working out the details and the structure and the outlining, which is something that I consider to be my strength, with the understanding that Melanie's strength in this case is her incredible writing voice. She really has the YA voice down. And so I said, okay, now we have to think about this girl. Who is she? And who does she hang out with? And what's going to happen to her? And who is she going to meet in the course of this story? And that's where the brainstorming came in. And Melanie came back to me, and it introduced a most fabulous character. I think maybe we love this character more than anybody else.
I think so. And honestly, we just attended a panel where some other authors were talking about character building and how they approach that. And one of the authors had mentioned how she doesn't have control over her characters and where they show up and how they're just there in the back of her brain, and she has to go with it because they're just there. And for me, Calvin, the best friend, he was just, he showed up, and it was so perfect, and it was so effortless for me to write his voice because it was like I already knew him. And Calvin is an African-American teenager who is, he's had a spinal cord injury, and he's in a wheelchair, so he is, paraplegic. He has limited ability, but he's also like the eternal optimist. Skylar, the protagonist, is, she has a very cynical, dry, sarcastic voice, and it's there to sort of hide the insecurities that lie underneath it all. Calvin is just the little ray of sunshine, and he just he carries the book. He's the comic relief throughout, because a lot of the book is very suspenseful, and it can even sort of dip into a dark place, dark enough so that I wondered sometimes as we were writing it, like, is this too dark for YA? Like, will this scare people off? But Calvin kind of balances that out. And so, and like what we were talking about earlier, the idea of having characters come from a diverse background. Calvin, it's interesting because Calvin is handicapped and he has these limitations, but that's not the focal point with him. It certainly is addressed, and we're going to in the second book talk more about his limitations and go more into detail about that. But as of right now, Calvin as a human being, he's Calvin. And sometimes as I wrote, I would almost forget that he was wheelchair bound. So it was definitely an interesting experience to write these characters. But the four main guys, the two girls and the two guys, they each have their unique three-dimensional traits, and I think we did good.
Yeah. And I just want to add that Melanie had experience working with physically challenged people who were in wheelchairs, so she was able to bring that kind of truth to Calvin, and I think it really shows. It's.
Yeah, we wanted to make the character accurate, both in terms of what he was able to actually physically do, as well as his attitude, because when I did work with people who had, limitations and who were in wheelchairs, I met a lot of people who it would send me back home feeling just this wave of gratitude, for what I did have, because these people, I would meet them and they never would walk again, but they were happy. They were genuinely happy. And that really just, it left a mark on me for sure. And I really wanted to create a character that had that same quality. For us, we were laughing about this the other day because there was a scene that we sort of needed to tweak a little bit. And we were trying to dictate out loud the text that would go in exchange for the text that was already written, and it was so contrived, and we were like, God, this doesn't work. I can't write out loud and to say the words out loud, have somebody type it out, and then the other person is. So we don't write together, literally. We're not sitting at two computers side by side going, typing. But we do outline together, because the brainstorming, it seems like when we get our heads together, we're able to really come up with some really cool ideas. And I remember specifically the first day that we, sat down and started to outline the book. And it was outside. We were sitting out underneath a sun umbrella by the pool, and Mom had a notebook, and we were just jotting down ideas and going, oh, that would be so cool, or, oh, wait, that wouldn't work, but that would be really awesome. And, we carved out, just a basic plan. And then from there, we took that idea and made it incredibly detailed. To the point where we knew scene by scene exactly what was going to happen. And once we knew what the scene was, Mom, who's written however many books, she let me kind of take the reins. And once I knew where we were going with the scene, I was ready. I was
Yeah.
so ready.
Yeah.
And it just came pouring out of me because I had been waiting for that structure, and now I had it. I already had the creativity, so I was good to go. But yeah, in terms of the creative writing process, the outlining for sure is where we find it's easiest, to come together and work in the same room.
Yeah, yeah.
Then.
Although we do sometimes exchange emails where it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
just had this idea. What if
Right.
if we can get this to happen, and this will change things and create a situation.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talked about extensively was something called action bursts,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that I have used throughout my entire writing career to keep a book from being too stagnant, to keep the pacing from up, and so to throw things at the characters that will show them to be themselves. So you get it. So basically, if you think of it like this, you throw action at a person and they react, and in their reacting, they reveal to the reader something about their personality and about their potential character growth. And so we spent a lot of time really kind of creating potholes for our characters in the form of action bursts, and what can happen because this is a little slow here. Now what can we do? And
that was something I loved learning about that, because for us as humans, just normal people, our chapter 3 would be, well, nothing really happened on Tuesday, and that would go on for 25 pages. But in a book, it's all about how do we keep the reader engaged, and how do we keep them turning the page. And that was just a vital lesson that I learned, was how to keep things interesting, keep it moving forward. But I was going to say, though, that, in terms of, one of the questions asked was, do we disagree on anything? And if so, how do we deal with that? And, as a mother and daughter, I remember a decade ago, my mom telling me, we hug like porcupines very carefully. and it's true. We're so alike that in a lot of ways we've butted heads in so many different areas of our lives. And to sit down and write a book together is kind of a miracle. But because of that, I think that we are very careful. And if there is a conflict that comes up, we've had to really work through the discomfort of telling the other person, maybe I don't like that idea so much, and maybe we could do this instead. And I think that we're still working on that and being diplomatic, but not to the point where we're going to not say anything, because that's the worst. It's just that kind of stagnant, stalemate feeling. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely learning how to become a team, and it really has created a healthier and more fruitful relationship in all different areas of our
it's very
lives.
it's really I find it fascinating to work with my daughter as an adult, because she's a grown up and she's contributing and so it's just a really cool kind of place that our relationship has moved, and to be able to write these characters and bring them to life and then see our names on a book. That's
Yes.
and also it's really okay. So I've written 50-something books, and this is Night Sky is Melanie's first book, and I get to experience the thrill of having a first book all over again, because I get to feel what she's feeling, and it's a wonderful thing. I'm psyched about this for so many reasons.